Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're looking at the all-new 2020 Toyota Corolla. This is a fully loaded XSE. Now I have driven this car as well as the hatch on a few occasions, but this is the first time I've actually been able to put together a complete test drive review. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive and I'm going to tell you what I really think. Before we get out on the test drive, let's have a look at this thing. This is a car that is all new from the ground up, even though from across the parking lot you might say it really doesn't look that much different from the last Corolla. It's just a refresh. Make no mistake, this is no refresh. Really, the only thing it shares with the last generation is the 106.3-inch wheelbase. All new chassis, TNGA, Toyota New Global Architecture. Same new chassis that underpins the Toyota CHR, the Toyota Prius. So it's a very versatile new architecture, and it's something that really offers a lot of things. And the first thing is even though it is the same wheelbase, it offers more space inside because, as you can see, the windshield is further forward and the rear is further back, so it actually offers a larger cabin inside. The trim grade we have here is a fully loaded XSE, the sportier luxury version. There's the XLE if you just want luxury without the sportiness, and if you want the sportiness without the luxury this has, you can go down to the SE that looks very much the same as this and has a lot of the same sport equipment inside and out. Here on this one we have the premium LED headlights, which are fully adaptive, which means they turn with you at night and they self-level very nicely. LED headlights are, however, standard across the board on Corolla, not something you can say for some of its competitors. With the XSE though, we have smoked lamps, we have a nice metallic grille, and a very aggressive front fascia. So if this is a little aggressive for you, look at some of the other trim grades. They tend to be a little bit more subtle in their styling. The wheels on this, 18-inch alloy wheels, a very nice looking wheel I think. It really sort of squares this car out. And those wheels are also part of the SE, which is mid-grade. So again, sportiness without all of this stuff. So if you like the look, you can go downscale a little bit, not spend quite as much money. This one is about $29,000 and some change, and we're pretty much topped out for the Corolla unless you go spending into accessories or perhaps the hybrid, which is also a first for this new Corolla. As you go down the side, you can see that this does look larger. That is in large part to its styling as well as the way that cabin is stretched out. Moving to the rear, I like the way this car looks from this angle. The taillights are LED, and I like the way they've actually created sort of a dog bone look where they've connected those taillights together with a bar across the top of the deck lid. It's a nice integrated look. On the XSE in the lower fascia, you can see we've got that nice ground effects look that you tend to see on sports cars, as well as a true dual exhaust. I love that. On the Corolla hatch, for reasons I don't understand, they put fake exhaust tips on there that aren't functional. They just look like real ones. I prefer the real thing over the falsies any day of the week. The interior of the 2020 Corolla, just like the exterior, is all new from the ground up. The first thing that we've got here is a dash design that has a long horizontal line that stretches the entire width, along with some curves and some design elements that really play into that, so that gives a sense of width in here. The other thing is there's a sense of depth in this dash because the front windshield has been pulled forward. In the XSE as well as the SE, you're going to get sport seats, which have a lot of bolstering, a little bit more than the other models. In the XSE, I've got Softex, which is vinyl, looks like leather, along with a nice sturdy cloth. In the SE, you get the sport seats with just a cloth trim. I like what they've done in terms of the soft trim on the dash. Along the top, you've got a nice blue accent stitching, but the materials here all have a nice, consistent feel to them. Yes, there are some hard plastics here and there, but they're of a high quality look and feel. And like I've said with some other reviews I've done, it's a consistent look and feel from one part to the next. I don't have cheap parts and expensive parts visually right next to each other. Everything just looks and flows together in a very well executed way. The switchgear also very good. As I look forward, the instrument cluster, one of two different instrument clusters in this car. This is the deluxe version in the higher trim grades with the fully digital screen. Oddly enough, digital to look like a traditional speedometer dial, but it's very appealing to look at. The graphics are good. A lot of information can be set there, and you can customize it with the buttons here on the steering wheel and control the settings for the car. Also on the steering wheel in the XSE, I've got paddle shifters for its transmission. The center stack, not a traditional center stack. We've got sort of a floating pod for the audio system up here, and there's not a wall of controls like you might find in a lot of cars. Instead, this flows under. On this car, I've got a wireless charger for your phone, which is great if you like to use that. Although I will point out, if your phone's sitting up here in it, you can't really see what's going on with the phone, nor can you use it as in some other cars where they placed it down here in the center. But in the center, I've got 2 cup holders as well as switches for some of the ancillary controls. In the center console armrest, storage down there, as well as power ports, 12 volt and USB charging. The infotainment system in this car, in this case, the fully loaded package version with native navigation, JBL sound. JBL sound hasn't always been the best, but it's okay in this car. It's not necessarily something I would say spend a lot of money for, but this is about a $1,700 option. But the functionality that you get here, in addition to that extra sound, is very good. Native nav, very important to me. I hate the systems that they have out there that say they're navigation, but if you don't have a phone with a data plan, you don't really have navigation at all. Here it's there whether you've got a phone in the car or not. Controls are very easy to use. You've got hard controls for all of your mainly used functions, and you can still use the menu for other things, as well as you've got some controls here on the steering wheel. So it's a nice system. It's not quite as intuitive as some of those you might find in other competitors, but it's not something I'm complaining a lot about here. Your rear seat passengers are going to be pretty comfortable. As you can see, pretty good space back here. I'm about 5'8", 5'9", which depends on what I'm wearing in terms of footwear. Some of you have asked, why is it one height one day and one height another? Well, that's why. But as I sit here, you can see I've got plenty of space. A lot of headroom, about 2-3 inches above my head. And these seats are set for my height, so if somebody were maybe 6 feet tall, I would probably still be okay back here. And the nice thing is that the seating height is actually pretty good. I'm not sitting down in a hole. Now, this center section for the middle passenger, a little bit raised, so perhaps a little bit of space less for them, but that's usually how it is on these 3 across seating. One thing I am missing back here is air conditioning vents, something very important here in Arizona when it's 110 plus degrees. Not that way today, but yesterday it was 118, so nice to have vents back here. You need to get with it, Toyota. On this car, I've got a 60-40 split, in addition to, on this trim grade, a full down armrest with cup holders. That armrest not on all trim grades, but you do get the 60-40 split. Trunk on this one, very big, nice big trunk for this particular car. Now the liftover is a little bit not quite as attractive as I might like to see, but it's a nice big trunk. Underneath the deck of that trunk, a spare tire, a mini spare tire, but a spare tire at that. Overall, I'm very pleased with this interior. The design, the overall execution, the space, everything has been improved over the last generation Corolla. And not that the last car wasn't good, it was actually better than the one it replaced by a long shot. This is just better still, and much more competitive, I think. So one of the first things I always like to do when we go for a drive is I like to floor it and see how this thing goes. And that's my big question about any car with a new powertrain, is how does it go? And this car has an all-new powertrain for the Corolla. So the question is, how does it go? Now, I'm going over 60, and I shouldn't be. Now, you might have noticed it sounded like a transmission was shifting, right? There were some pretty pronounced shift points there. There weren't really shift points. This is a 2-liter engine, 169 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque, mated to what Toyota calls an iCVT, intelligent CVT. So a continuously variable transmission, not a shifting normal transmission. But we do have paddle shifters here, and it sounded like it was shifting there. But see, what's going on is it's giving me simulated shift points so that I have the illusion, both sensatory and auditory, that I'm getting shifts. One of the ways that this functions that is a little bit different than most CVTs is that it has a real first gear that you start out in, then it shifts into the CVT mode, which then gives you simulated shifts. Sounds like a lot of Swiss cheese, but the point of it is to give you a more direct feel on takeoff, and it's just more robust later in the rev range when you're driving and giving the shift feels. It actually works pretty good, I have to admit. I'm not a CVT person, never have been. I generally don't like them. I still wish this was a real transmission, but for a CVT, this works actually pretty well. And starting out in a real first gear does go a long way to getting rid of that rubber band feel that is the biggest complaint with most of them. Now, power, it's not the fastest car in the world, but it's sporty enough that, well, it can be fun. And I'm speeding again. And because it's not turbocharged, you do get immediate power. And in sport mode, at least, this iCVT does a good job of delivering it to you. Now, fuel economy. This is the larger of the two engines available in the Corolla. If you want fuel economy, I suggest you get the other one, because this one, while rated at 31 city, 38 highway, and 34 combined, I got nowhere close to that this week. I got 29 mpg combined this week, which is way down there. That's like 5 less. Now, in fairness, I was using the air conditioner the entire week. It was 100+ degrees, still is. Well, not today. It's been very hot here in Arizona this week, so air conditioner is always on, but that usually doesn't give me a 5 mpg hit on most cars. When it comes to drive and handling, being on the TNGA, the Toyota New Global Architecture, this is a nice driving car. Every vehicle that I have tested that's built with this new chassis is just such a step up from previous Toyotas. It doesn't feel dead to the world like I'm driving a cadaver, right? It has a little bit of spring in its step. It's got good steering feel. It feels of quality as you roll down the road. You feel like you're riding a solid platform, something that used to be reserved for German cars. Now, I'm not saying this is a BMW, but what I'm saying is this has some reflexes and it has some responsiveness that you can feel, not only out on the curvy roads and on the freeway, but when you're driving around your neighborhood. I like what they've done. It's just, it feels supple, it feels refined, and I've said that about the CHR, the Prius, the Camry, and some of the new SUVs I've tested that are all built on the same platform. Toyota just really raised the bar by doing this to all of their cars. So, good job, Toyota. Now, a couple things we're pointing out. No auto start-stop system, which I hate those things. Toyota has not polluted this car with that yet, so if you don't like those, this is your car. Kia, auto start-stop system. Volkswagen, auto start-stop system. Some of the other competitors, if they don't have it, they're going to get it. This is still one holdout where you're not going to get that yet, and that, for me, means peace. I don't have the engine shutting off and turning on and just wrecking my peace when I'm driving around in traffic. So that's a great thing. The other thing, which is a big bonus here in terms of the living and driving experience, is the fact that it's just a simple Toyota, right? I don't know if that makes sense. It's not fettered with a lot of technology. Not that technology's bad, but I don't have turbochargers. I don't have little tiny engines that are overworked. This has got pretty much the normal run-of-the-mill stuff. It's just the newest run-of-the-mill stuff. And Toyota does that great. Okay, my friends, let's wrap it up. I like it. I would buy it, in fact. It goes on my I'd buy it list for 2020. How about that? Sam Haymart would buy a Corolla. Now, I will also point out the Honda Civic Current, also on my I'd buy it list. These are two cars that are at the top of their game. And in talking about that, let's talk about that, because here we've got a car that's in a smaller class than it used to be. Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge, they all pussed out. They're no longer in the market because they just couldn't cut it. They couldn't build a car good enough to sell in high enough numbers that people, well, they could make a profit, because you got to make X amount of cars to make a profit, and they couldn't cut it. That's what you get for building trash, people. So just a little lesson learned there for those at home thinking about building cars. That said, very good. Why? 3 key takeaways. My first one is solid quality. What do you know? Solid quality plays the game well. This is a car that Toyotas have always been known for their reliability and their quality. No question about that. But what we have here is a car that feels like it. Now, I've had Corollas before, a couple generations back, and while they lasted forever and they never broke, they feel like cheap tin cans. You get down the road and they sound like a tin can. You slam the door, it sounds like a microwave oven. We don't have that here. These doors have a nice solid thunk. You drive this car, it has a nice solid feel that's refined and of premium quality in the way it drives. That is something new for Corolla, let's be honest. So that's really what they've done here, is they've made this car feel and look, and they've really backed up the reputation that it already has for reliability with something that feels it. So that's a great thing. The other thing is sexy. I think this is sexy. You can call me a nut if you want. I like the way this car looks. I like the hatch also, but with the wheels, the ground effects, even without that in the base model, this is a good looking car. Toyota has really, I think in this particular iteration, they've really refined their current styling themes that you see some of the other cars. The Prius, little crazy, little art project, right? And a lot of people think that's extreme. The Camry even has some extremities going on in its styling. Here, they sort of whittled it down to something a little bit more mainstream, even here in the XSE, that I think is sexy, but not over the top. And it's a car that, you know, you can drive it to church on Sunday and the country club on Saturday, and you can maybe even take it to the races on Friday. So whatever the, I don't know, I didn't do that saying right, but you got the point, right? So the third thing is competitive value. We talked about the competitive set. It's smaller now. We've got the Honda Civic, the Nissan Sentra, we've got the Kia Forte, and we've got the Hyundai Elantra, maybe one or two others. We don't have that many competitors anymore, but here what we've got is a car that's solid, it's simple, right? It doesn't have a lot of crazy things like auto start stop systems. It doesn't have turbos, not yet at least. It's a nice, simple, solid appliance like Toyota in the mechanical way, yet it's got a premium sense that I think makes it very competitive, and price-wise, we're right in the ballpark. So I think with those three things, that's one of the reasons I'd buy it. It's just a nice all-around car that it's comfortable to get into and drive every day, and you know, it's actually something that makes you turn back and look at it on your way away from it, going into wherever you are, and that takes a lot to get me to do that in a car. So yeah, there you go. So if you like the test drive you saw, click right there and see my latest one, or better yet, click down there and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Either way, stay tuned.